I'd like to also thank our code heroes who were mingling amongst everyone, helping out as people needed through the days. And I would like to say that I noticed that there were people sitting at the hackathon almost the entire time the SIIM meeting was open. So that is fantastic. Thank you to our code heroes, Kathy Detoski, Lindsay Marrero, and Mike Sansabello, who are actually virtual. Nick Hermans, Stephanie Hahn, and Tom O'Sullivan. And we'd also like to thank our domain experts who were also helping. Ali Tajan, David Kwan, Khalid Yunus, Jeff Plume, Stephanie Ho, and Stephen Scotty. All right, so we're going to start. We'll have our teams come up and join when they're called to come up. And I know we have one team that is completely virtual, so we will do that completely virtually. All the teams will be joining on Zoom, so you can see everything. And our first team that's coming up is a hybrid team. Some are here, some are virtual. And it is the Integrated Reporting and Conferencing with FHIRCast. So please join us. Oh, I'm sorry. It is completely remote. It is not hybrid. So
I'm here, yeah.
If they could start on Zoom, wonderful. Thank you for joining.
Sure.
And I will turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. So let me share the whole screen somewhere. Yeah. Okay. So this project is about desktop integration using FHIRCast. We're going to be demoing and presenting two different use cases. And I've been integrated reporting and then conferencing. So I've been working with very nice gentlemen from Rad AI, Mr. Jason Malobiki, Fletcher Easton, and John Pollitt. And I'm Martin Bellumeur, or Bellohammer if you prefer, and I'm a freelancer currently working on the FHIR extension for the OIF viewer, and previously I've been with IDX Rad, Siemens, and Visage Imaging. So before I go too far, let's take a couple of minutes to talk about FHIRCast because people are not usually too familiar with it. So it's a new standard to synchronize healthcare applications. So it's a replacement for the CCOW standard 25 years ago that never really took off. So we've been doing all kinds of custom integration for desktop integration since then. And FHIRCast defines a way to receive and distribute events between applications. And the context of the events that are passed on are FHIR resources such as imaging study, observation, imaging selection, and of course also diagnostic report. So the example events that we'll be demoing today for the integrated reporting or diagnostic report, open, update, and select. And for the conferencing, we'll be sharing between each other an imaging study, open and close events. And for that second demonstration, I would like you guys to participate. So I'll be sharing in the chat a URL, which will open a viewer for you, and we can do a conference all together. So what do I like about FHIRCast? It reduces the number of interfaces. Each application only needs to interface with the hub, and using standardized events, it should be much more plug and play than all the customization we've been doing, because we've been doing file drops, we've been doing calling executable with command line options, we've been doing calling URLs, and recently a lot of people are doing post messages between browsers after a smart launch. And all that is customization, and all that is point-to-point between the applications. So if you're a PACS admin trying to troubleshoot a call from the radiologist saying, oh, my PACS viewer closed at the wrong moment, and you want to debug what's going on, you basically have to go in the log files of each of these applications and hope that they have timing, good timestamps in their logs that can help you figure out what's going on. And FHIRCast also helps with integration across computers. So your application don't need to be actually running on the same computer. And I think that's a lot of future for in the operating theater. If you've been in a surgical room recently, you'll see there's a lot more computer and devices that they were before, and they need to talk to each other. So I think companies that are in that IT space, not just radiology, but surgery like Brain Lab, IT could benefit from the standard. It's a hard sell. I've been working on FHIRCast a long time. It's been slow to take up because projects naturally prefer to talk to each other directly and not have to deal with the hub in the middle. So that's a natural way and something we need to overcome. So let's do this first demo. IHE integrated reporting between Rad AI and Opel Health Imaging Foundation. So this one I will do alone, but the next one we'll do together. So let me bring up to let me bring up Rad AI here. And I'll open a second window on my little MacBook here screen. It's hard to control position of things. And here I'm going to have the viewer, the OIF viewer, running on my laptop. So it's a little slow with Zoom and everything going on. Come on up. Here you come. Oh, sorry. It runs faster than this normally. So on the left side, I have Rad AI reporting. Now you're looking at the work list. On the right side, I have the OIF viewer. So I'm going to open a chest study here. And when I open the study in OIF, that sends a diagnostic report open to the hub. That's publishing. That's the terminology we use. Publishing a message to the hub. And because Rad AI has subscribed to receive this message, it's receiving this message and consuming it and opening the study. Now I'm going to make a measurement. And from here, I have a button to send that measurement to Rad AI. So when I push that, that's publishing a diagnostic report update message. And again, Rad AI will consume that, and we'll see that measurement show up here. Let me push that button. And now in Rad AI, you see this came over. And you have two things. You have the measurement and you have the imaging location. I'm going to put the imaging location in the report. And if I navigate away, now let's pretend that I'm, a day later going back to the report. I'm reading this report and I would like to see this image. So I'm going to click on the link in Rad AI, and that will open that exact image in the OIF viewer. There we go. All right. So now for the next demo, I'm going to put in the chat. Why do I exit the chat? Not that one, this one. Okay, just 1 second. Sorry, I'm clicking at the wrong place. It's very hard with just such a small screen. So here's the link I would like you to navigate to. Right. Let's close that. Let's close. No, I'm not here. Let's close this. We don't want that. So let's bring up Chrome. Okay, I get one session open here. And I'm going to open a second viewer. And hopefully a few of you have done the same. So what's going to happen is conferencing. So it's a feature of the hub. When I open the study in one viewer, after I start the conference, it's going to broadcast that imaging study open event to all the participants in the conference. So I've got a little button here to start the conferencing. And it's showing a page that comes from the hub. This is not from the client. You don't have to notify the client. And great, we have a whole bunch of people. So the use case is like tumor board again, or resident teaching, Ontology weekly. So I'm going to start the conference. And
We've
now
got
when I
about
put,
1 minute left, just so everyone's aware.
yeah, I'm done. So when I open the first study, you're going to get a message saying, do you want to participate in this conference? Just say yes. And now you should, like me, see that one viewer is following the other. So everyone in the conference is watching the same thing. So I can close the study, go to the next one, and you should see the same thing happening on your desktop, on your viewer, because we're all connected together through the hub. All right, so that was my demo. So thank you to everyone who participated in the team. Thank you to Rad AI, and thank you to the OIF team, really open to innovation, a great team to work with. So thank you very much, and have a great day.
Thank you so much. We want to leave just a couple minutes for questions from our judges. So judges, do we have any questions?
I've got a question. I'm not sure if you can hear me or not.
Yep.
We can, Mark.
So thank you very much, Martin. Fantastic presentation. I'm very excited about this. Does the conferencing also share the mouse state, or does it just share the viewer state?
No, it's just opening the study. So, but the advantage is you can be in any viewer that supports FHIRCast. So if you're using single VIA, and I'll be testing with them in August, uh, one could be using OIF, one could be using single VIA, another one could be using ACFAF. They're all supporting FHIRCast. It should be plug and play, and each one can use their own viewer and control their viewing and during your conference, like in the tumor board or resident teaching, you have control of your own viewer. So now sending Zoom and sending imaging level and information, that's possible. We'd have to use some custom event, define them, and hopefully maybe have the standard approve them. But it's not very difficult to say. But there's no standard way for me to say to ACFA, I want to zoom to factor 2, for example. Right now, I just have an imaging open.
I see. Got it. Got it. That makes sense.
You can do it,
Yeah.
but
So
do
I
it in a
think that,
standard way.
yeah. I think that the one of the reason I ask is because we use a collaboration tool, and the best part of the collaboration tool is the ability to share the mouse state, so that I can literally put my cursor
Yeah, I know
on
that too.
something. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that maybe is a version 2, but this is very impressive, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sylvia, do you have a question?
Yep.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about how it integrates with single sign-on or Okta, some kind of security.
Yeah. So single sign-on, to me, these are two different topics. So when you do desktop integration, of course, you need to authenticate first. And so that's what you hear a lot about Smart on Fire. That's about authentication and authorization, having a standard way of doing that. Once you're authenticated, then you can do desktop integration. So for me, as a prior person working with vendors, you work with the authentication that the customer is using, and often it's Windows domain. But now we have this Smart on Fire standard that says, well, authentication with the EHR should always be using OAuth 2 and using this way to authorize which data you're allowed to see. So that's a great benefit. But once you've done that single sign-on, you need to do also desktop integration. And if we don't define that, we'll continue to do all kinds of custom messaging, which really doesn't bring us forward as a group.
All right. Thank you so much for your presentation today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I do want to say I forgot to make a couple announcements at the beginning. We are going to have about 2 minutes for each, or I'm sorry, 6 minutes for each presentation and 1 to 2 minutes for questions from the judges, which I guess I will repeat your questions or have you come up to the front. And then the Audience Choice Award, there is a link in the chat and we will join that at the end. So please vote for your favorite at the end of our sessions. And the winners of everything will be announced today at the 3:15 meeting. So we'll announce those with Mohammed this afternoon. All right, thank you for that presentation. Thank you very much. All right, so our next group is the Automated Quantification of Occupational Lung Disease group.
So we are joined by Manny, and Manny, please tell us when to advance the slides.
Great. Good morning. I'm coming in from California, so I'm glad we were able to do this hybrid presentation. I'm ready whenever you are.
Go ahead.
All right. So this is our team. We're a multidisciplinary team consisting of physicians and machine learning scientists. Next. So just to give you all some background, I'm an occupational and environmental medicine physician. I've been practicing for over 10 years. And over the last few years, I and a bunch of my colleagues here in the United States have been observing a phenomena called occupational silicosis. Silicosis, at least for all intents and purposes, was a disease from ancient times where folks who were working with stone materials would develop this very intensive lung disease where essentially they would breathe in this respirable crystalline dust and develop this pneumoconiosis. But unfortunately, it's making a comeback. So that was really the impetus for this project, to be able to find ways to be able to better diagnose these conditions, especially among specific worker cohorts. So today we're just going to go through some of the public health issues around this epidemic, and then we'll transition over to what a B reader is, and we'll describe why quantification is important and how do we analyze all of these chest x-rays. Next. I've already mentioned this, but this disease, occupational silicosis, is making a comeback across the world. I've seen a number of these cases here in Southern California. I'm clinical assistant professor at UC Irvine, and we've had a number of stone fabricator workers, primarily of Hispanic origin, come to see us complaining of cough, shortness of breath. I've actually visited a few of these sites, and I kid you not, it is literally full of dust. Yes. So again, bringing some global context to this new occupational silicosis epidemic that is happening across the United States and certain parts of the world. Really, the main gist of this slide is to let folks know that these stone fabricator workers are doing a variety of different tasks. That includes cutting and grinding this engineered stone product, which consists of a variety of different silica-based components, as well as a resin. And when these folks are working with this material, it generates a whole constellation of dust. And this free crystalline silica is what enters the worker's lungs. Unfortunately, there's no definitive treatment for those who develop this subacute or chronic silicosis. A lot of it is just based on symptomatic treatment. Unfortunately, some of these folks have undergone lung transplant. Next slide. This is just to illustrate a case of an individual who did have underlying silicosis. These are coronal and axial images, CT images, and you can look at the upper lung fields. You can see those masses with underlying central lobular emphysema.
So
next slide.
We have almost 2 more minutes.
Oh, okay. All right. So I've already illustrated the current epidemic around occupational silicosis. Next slide. And this is how this is occurring. You can see the workers breathing in the silica dust. Next slide. Oh, did it freeze again?
Now we can hear you again.
Oh, okay. I'm so sorry. Next slide. There you go. So there is a whole program in the United States called the Certified B Reader Program. These individuals are primarily radiologists, but also occupational medicine physicians who are certified to read these chest x-rays. Although chest CT is a much more sensitive modality, Chest X-ray remains the international standard. Next slide. So this is giving an outline of the NIOSH B Reader program. It's been around for a little over 45 plus years, and they utilize the International Labor Office or ILO classification system. Next slide. This is just providing some background about the International Labor Organization's paradigm. Next slide. So right now in the United States, we have a major B reader shortage. You can see in the peak in the early 90s, there were over 750. We now have about 185. So really looking for solutions to be able to automate this process is of key importance. Next slide. So having the need for objectivity in B reading is a very critical factor. And looking at the concordance rates among B readers, it's about 80 to 90% among expert radiologists. If you look to general medical staff, it drops a little bit to about 80%. But there is always room for disagreement on these B reads. And being able to find a consistent way to interpret these B reads systematically can really provide definitive diagnoses. Next slide.
Manny, can we advance to the methods and to the data?
Let's go ahead and move along. Absolutely,
okay.
please.
So thank you. We will.
Let's go ahead and if we can get to the Miro board. Perfect. So let's go ahead and play that.
So basically, we created the Miro board to explain the form that the readers usually fill in, and we have collected data from 897 patients that have like multiple reads for these images, and this data is going to be made available. The imaging data is already on SIIM server for everyone to use. We are just trying to make sure that we are just trying to make sure that all the CSV data is identified, but basically this is what we have. It's going to be an open source image data with 1,553 chest x-rays from 897 patients, and we have multiple B-reading reports, both from individual B-readers, but as well as panels, and we can advance one more. So one of the things that we wanted to do is, because images come with different spacings, different sizes, we wanted to standardize this before the input to medical imaging deep learning model, where instead of just doing a resize, we wanted to keep the population anatomical structures distribution. So we harmonized the voxel spacing first for all the images, then we padded to make them square and have the same size on all dimensions to the highest size of the biggest image, and then we resized to something smaller just to keep the anatomical size distributions of these images.
So our split was 90. We did 10-fold cross validation. Our split was 90% training and 10% validation. Please go next. So we trained ResNet 18, ResNet 50, EfficientNet, various versions, and VIT, and this is the best performing model on a test data set which the model had never seen during the training. So we are getting an accuracy of more than 97%, and precision recall and error rates are also given.
And this was for whether there were opacities or not on the line. We have many other variables that we want to explore in the future. Some of them will be multi-label, and that is something that we have not had the chance to tackle. So the code is here. I will advance this, but we can share it afterwards. And there are some long-term goals that I think we have exceeded our time. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have maybe one question from the judges? So the question is, are we planning to implement this for patient reads? What's the long-term goal?
I can take this one. So yes, I mean, that's the ultimate plan. We're actually currently looking for grant funding. I work at the VA as well. There are many opportunities through the VA to be able to potentially fund this. But I do think that there's a great need for this type of modality.
We have one more question here.
So we have several variables, like we start with lung opacities, then like pleural abnormalities, but within the lung I can. So there is first on the questionnaire, like whether there are or not abnormalities, but then we go to the size, the location. So like different lobules of the lung, right or left. So these are also like things that we want to predict. So first, whether there are abnormalities, then like a workflow and like the readings that they do, and then go for pleural abnormalities, where they are located, where are the sizes. So that's something that we wish to do. We just investigated now, yes, just whether there are opacities or not.
Yeah, so right now it is just a binary classifier, but the other things are in the pipeline.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
All right, I'd like to introduce our next group. Their project is called Scan and Tell.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming out here today. My name is Nabil. This is Delaney, Paige, and Nico, and we're all biomedical engineering students at Marquette University. We're going to be presenting our project on monitoring adverse drug side effects in medical imaging while informing the FDA with FHIR. This is most of our first exposure with FHIR and API queries, and we're very excited to show you what we've accomplished. While many leaps and bounds have been made in the field of medical imaging informatics, there are still many opportunities for growth. Firstly, imaging results must reach providers promptly, especially in situations where patients may be experiencing adverse drug side effects. This is especially important in outpatient settings where imaging volumes are very high and there's a potential delay between time of imaging and reading of the report of the provider. Secondly, drug side effects should be tracked in real time. This allows for the compilation of data that includes the prevalence and potential demographic risk factors of these side effects. Finally, as primary research literature is constantly evolving, clinicians, especially those in private and non-academic hospitals, require technology to inform them of the latest breakthroughs and how those implicate their clinical practice.
With those opportunities in mind, our project aims to timely notify providers of any adverse drug side effects and report those imaging results sooner. We're trying to report those drug-related imaging findings to the FDA in real time.
So sorry about the slides, but to demonstrate them, we created a patient we called Irene SIIM. She's a 65-year-old woman who was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease 5 years ago and is taking the medication lecanemab. She started experiencing symptoms of neuropathy, so her neurologist sent her to get ordered an MRI, and she had to follow up with him about a month later. When she got the MRI, the radiologist found that she had cerebral microhemorrhaging along with an edema surrounding it. Both of these are known side effects of the drug that she was currently taking. This means that Irene and her neurologist should meet right away to reevaluate whether or not she should continue on this drug before more adverse effects are seen. So our project's goal is to notify the neurologist immediately once these adverse effects are seen. This is done by comparing the clinical findings as a condition resource with the common side effects of the medication. In this example, the comparison was positive.
So our software then alerts the provider to review the charts due to these imaging findings, which may end up leading to the discontinuation of lecanemab. When they access the chart, this will trigger the CDS hooks to provide relevant literature articles, which will then aid in helping the provider make their decision on making any changes to the patient's medication regimen.
So right now is where we would be showing you guys our demo, which is where we'll be showing you some Python code snippets of how this would actually work. Hopefully this will connect soon. but I'll go ahead and just talk about sort of the process, what that would look like. So one script that we would have would be, of course, querying the FHIR server to pull all the codes and data that are relevant to this case. That would include the patient data, the conditions they have, which would have the observations attached to them, as well as whatever medications they may be experiencing and whatever side effects they may be experiencing as well. Once all of that is compiled, of course, the positives and negatives will be sent together in a bundle to the FDA for further analysis so that they can have it on their record, as well as there is an external CDS hook script, which will be taking the codes that were parsed out of the first script and cross-referencing them with each other to determine whether the patient has an adverse side effect, which may be attached to a medication that they're using, with the observation that the radiologist would find. If all of those are true, then the CDS hooks script would send a card to the practitioner so that whenever they open the patient file report, they would get a notification telling them that, hey, so it turns out that your patient may be experiencing an adverse side effect due to a drug that they are currently using. That way, the practitioner can take action and, maybe prevent their patient from using this medication so that the condition does not get worse. Again, hopefully, if this comes up soon, we can show you guys that. But that's basically the main gist of how that works.
And then just to reiterate, our project alerts physicians of drug-induced imaging findings promptly, which is then will be reported to the FDA for further analysis, enabling real-time tracking of the drug side effects.
The further iterations of this project will expand to include recent or unknown side effects of drugs. In this example, microhemorrhages and edemas are relatively known side effects of this drug that we studied. However, as more drugs are presented in the research literature, our system is a great way to collect data and understand in whom it is being, these side effects are being expressed. Additionally, and another iteration of our project would be to alert the radiologist prior to scanning that the patient is on a certain drug like lecanemab, and that they may be experiencing certain side effects like microhemorrhages and edema.
So we would like to thank everyone who helped us develop and refine this project, including Terry Sippel-Schmidt, Alex Barrington, Tom O'Sullivan, Dr. Chris Roth, Dr. Rain Geis, and Dr. Krishna Jaluru. Without your support and mentorship, this would not have been possible, so we greatly appreciate you all. And additionally, we would like to extend our gratitude to the judges for your time. Thank you, and do you have any questions?
So I have a question for you. How are you encoding the side effects?
So
like
I can actually get this part. So we are using, we used FHIR version 4, which has a resource which is called Medicinal Product Undesired Effect. We have that, which is the medication that we're using, or that itself references the medication that it is attached to, and that will also be built into the bundle, which is sent to the FDA. So it would contain the medication, which would then also contain the medicinal product undesired effect, which would then also be attached to the condition that the patient is currently facing.
Thanks. Is there currently a standard for how you specify the medication itself, or is that like just the name of the medication? Because that's actually a difficult problem.
It is. I believe that in the example we're using a LOINC code, but there's tons of different codes that you could use and other databases for those codes. Sorry. But right now for this example, we're using a LOINC code, and in the medication resource, we're able to specify what the medication is, what the code is, and then in there, if we wanted to as well, we could also specify the color, shape, logo, brand, and all of that as well.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Mark. We've got a question here, and I would like to reiterate what Kevin said. Great job with continuing. Good job to have it on your phones as well as on the computer. Very good. So, Kevin, what's your question, please? So Kevin's asking if they started from the report or if it was already in the FHIR server.
We started with the assumption that it was already in the FHIR server. Yeah, so the question was, what was the CDS Huck's trigger used? Was it general or do we have a specific one? So our goal was to use a communication resource and FHIR to first send like a text or an email, however the physician would like their communication. So then they would go view their patient's record, and then that would be our trigger for the patient view.
Just want to repeat that because I can't hear.
Okay, so the question was, is after the FDA receives our communication, how do we verify that we received that communication? What are sort of the next steps following that? As far as our next steps, you know, a big part of our project was being able to differentiate between side effects that are known and ones that are present. So if there's like a new side effect that we report to the FDA and the FDA is able to confirm that, yes, this is a side effect that we can start to track in accordance with this medication, then in our database, we can, instead of treating it as a new side effect, we can treat it as a known side effect. So in that case, we can be more confident with sending CDS hooks cards to clinicians and notifying patients and practitioners that, yes, there is not necessarily a guaranteed chance that the condition is due to the medication, but there is an increased chance that the condition that you're facing is because of the medication. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. So for those of you online that could not hear, we just had one of the judges comment that they did a great job, even though we were not able to see their presentation online. So again, thank you so much. And our next team is accessing clinical information from the EMR.
Morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay, great. So my name is Mitchell Miller, and this is my collaborator, Mike Ross. I practiced clinical radiology for 30 years, and this is my first participation in a SIIM Hackathon. So the problem that we wanted to look at was called informed imaging, accessing clinical information from the EMR. And so essentially, this is a very vexing clinical workflow problem for the clinical radiologist. So we don't usually wear a stethoscope, as you know, but we're faced with interpreting imaging examinations accurately and quickly. And we also want a desire to glean the electronic medical record for information. The problem is that the information electronic medical record is fragmented, it's redundant, and it's often buried very, very deeply, and it's hard to retrieve. So what we sometimes do, the more diligent and therefore less efficient of the clinical radiologist will call the clinician and try to answer, ask them questions about the patient's clinical history that will help us interpret the examination. The problem with that is that the clinicians may not be available because they're very busy as well. They may not be in the hospital, or they may not know. They may say, you may get a response, like if you call them up, say, what's the history? They may say, I don't know. Call the consultant, the specialist. So that's another very difficult problem. And so what the purpose of our project was to just take a look to see if somehow we could substitute calling the clinician for some sort of query and search using the FHIR tools and perhaps ChatGPT. So Mike is going to continue and discuss.
So when I heard of this, I thought you could break this problem down into kind of 3 sections. Taking a question from that radiologist, maybe we can construct a FHIR query given a specific server, given a specific patient. Step 2 would be to actually go and retrieve those resources, get that bundle of diagnostic reports or conditions or problems. And then the third would be to kind of summarize it so that it is like a conversation. And we thought we could use ChatGPT to kind of force or digest that resource bundle down into a conversation that could kind of create that dialogue. So I know you're not supposed to put a lot of words on a slide. We kind of constructed a prompt for this kind of coercing into these FHIR queries. And after several iterations, we did end up getting it to come out as if it were an interface engine to get an actual FHIR query that we could then kind of copy and use as part of that workflow. You could apply this to these various questions, and we were able to kind of pull out the different FHIR resources. So this was kind of it was an experiment and kind of an iterative process as we kind of tuned the prompt in order to generate those FHIR queries. The next step, I work for Cubera. We have our interface engine. We were able to pull those resources from the FHIR server, and we could automate that component. I took those bundles and we ran it through ChatGPT, and it gave a big summary. And again, through these iterations, we kind of wanted to bring it down to more of a conversation. So further prompts into that ChatGPT, and then passing in that bundle of resources, we were able to get more of a paragraph, a more conversational explanation of the patient and that clinical history.
So just in terms of next steps, we'd like to try using the ChatGPT API to automate a workflow, and then maybe query a different data set like the synthetic coherent data set, so we can I believe that has some more clinical information than what's in the SIIM data set. So that's basically our next step, and thank you for your attention.
That's a very good question. So the question is whether we used filtering in those queries. And to answer your question, no, we were using the SIIM data set, so we collected all of it. But yes, you absolutely could in the prompt. It was actually interesting because the initial FHIR queries coming out of that ChatGPT result, it wouldn't work. So you had to almost inform it, no, you have to use the subject field, there is no patient field on that resource. And so I think with, again, refining that prompt so that you can almost tell it explicitly what you're looking for. And so we could add a filter just as you can in FHIR. The question was how accurate it was. We did not do any accuracy. This was a hackathon for us. So we just played with the concept. There's nothing scientific, no scientific study on it.
So just for the people on Zoom, the question that Dr. Dhani had asked was, did we encounter any hallucinations, or were there any quality assurance? And so the short answer is, very interestingly, yes. When Mike put in another query, we got a beautiful history of patient with COPD and pneumonia presenting with fever and cough. And when I saw the slide, I said, wow, that's impressive. I didn't see that in any of the JSON data. So it's obviously a big problem, but I think a radiologist, this would be a dream for radiologists if this could come to be. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we've got this down a little bit better now that thank you for everyone who's online for being patient with us while we have questions here and then repeat that for you. So our next project is called Rad Tracker.
There you go.
All right. Awesome. Hello, my name is Charlie Chambers. Darko Lalovic and I work at the Center for Practice Transformation at University of Pennsylvania Radiology Department. I wanted to present to you a quick, simple idea that we had that has a known need among our radiologists. It's about case tracking. Radiologists have explained to us a need for taking personal notes about cases outside of the EMR. So these are sort of non-clinical, non-diagnostic things, but things that they want to keep track of for their own educational purposes or curiosity, ways to make themselves develop professionally. The sort of notes that they might take are saying things like, this is an interesting case. This was a useful learning opportunity. I want to know what's going to happen with pathology in the future so that I can review my decisions about what I found. I want to know about later imaging to see if there's sort of growth and stuff like that. The way that our radiologists are meeting this need is by taking down physical notes on index cards or notebooks or electronic notes in some kind of spreadsheet. But by far, the most disheartening and the most common way that people are dealing with this is not dealing with it at all. They're just not taking the notes that they want to take because they don't have the appropriate tools. All right. So when they take these physical notes, they're not searchable. The lack of integration is time consuming because they're writing down MRNs or accession numbers onto their index cards. And then if they want to find out about that later pathology, every month or so, they're going to take the stack of index cards, retype in those MRNs into the EMR in order to find out what happened with those patients. And this is just, of course, wrong. All right. So we're proposing an integrated solution. We have the ability in Sectra to create a custom button in the toolbar. And when it's clicked, it launches a custom URL, one that contains the accession number, one that contains the identity of the user, and it passes it off to a website. We have there a very, very short form where a radiologist can type in any kind of quick note that they like about this accession. They can add tags to make it easier for them to search in the future or for sharing with their colleagues. They can set up reminders, either with an absolute date, remind me on January 1st about this, or with a relative date, remind me in 60 days. And they can also choose to either get notified when there's additional imaging or new pathology available for that particular patient. All right. So now we're going to see if I can switch this. Those entries in that form get put in a database that we keep in radiology, and then we're able to feed it back to radiologists. And let me see if I can. Right. All right. So this is a page that they might come to. I've got some sample exams on here. Each row is an exam that they bookmarked. You can pull up actual reports, and then also you can adjust the properties. This is the same sort of dialog box they used on the entry. They can change these sort of things, add more notes, change the notification settings or whatever like that, or forget about this exam altogether if they want to just remove it from their list. Up at the top, I've got toolbars in the way. The search tags tab at the top allows you to search things that other radiologists have tagged. So you can make public tags that might say something like, what do I have on there? This is a misleading case, or this is a great learning opportunity, or whatever. You tag them that way. Other people can search by those, and they can be part of your learning experience. And then finally, at Penn, we've got a certain number of macros that have particular usage requirements. For example, if you're going to have a recommendation in your reports, then you need to include a certain recommendation macro. Sometimes radiologists forget to put in a time frame for that follow-up, and so we look for things where those need to be amended. Those reports need to be amended so that the patients and the ordering provider know about the time frame for follow-up. We can add exams to a radiologist list automatically when they need to review them, because we want them to see them again and fix them up so that they do things well. Right. So that's it. And this is a project that we've whipped up over a number of days. But we're actually hoping to implement. It's going to be hopefully with a bunch of test radiologists in a live setting within a month or two at Penn Medicine. Thank you. Right. Yeah. We talked to our sector people, and they just said, "Hey, you can do this." And so we said, "All right, let's do it." And so I think that Sectra has that as like a thing, and our IT folks were happy to provide us with that. Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right, thank you so much. Our next.
All right. Morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me all right? Thank you. We are Marquette University. My team and I, myself, Ian, Brianna, Audrey, Megan, and Alex, planned and developed a model that leverages large language models and retrieval augmented generation vectors to streamline research of clinical decision support resources for clinicians. Our goals were to create a text generative AI that can expedite the research time for clinicians, utilize patient data from the EHR to tailor generated responses, and support physicians by streamlining workflow. The key factor that we identified was that time was a precious resource. And for many clinicians, they know that there's never enough time in the day to work and live life. So we decided to create QuickMed, our artificial intelligence that utilizes ChatGPT and RAG vector databases through med.ai to support our physicians and clients.
Our clinical case involved a white male at 73 named Gene Sim, who's experiencing abdominal pain and discomfort. His primary care physician, Dr. True, unsure of what to do next, ordered a CT scan. Upcoming his next appointment, she navigated to his electronic healthcare records to view the radiology report. Here she saw that a mass was present in his stomach that was suggestive but not definitive. She suspected a GIST but was unsure, so she had a few options. She could refer him to a GI specialist, or she could navigate to UpToDate, where she could rifle through all the extensive resources here that are provided. Both were costly options. Then she remembered that she could navigate directly to QuickMed at the bottom of his electronic healthcare records. From here, a chat bot would pop up where she could just type, "How do I treat a GIST?" From here, she would be provided with a limited and ranked list of articles to help affirm her decision that Gene does have a GIST.
Excuse me. Hopefully everyone can hear me. So yeah, this is our workflow of our pipeline. And so initially what the clinician would do is input a prompt into an LLM. For instance, for our case, we looked at the latest ChatGPT 4.0 via MDAI, and you would input that prompt regularly about the patient's disease. In our demo, we look at just tumors, and you would get a response. But for our specific pipeline and how we leverage RAG, retrieval augmented generation, is that we ground that prompt with additional patient EHR information. So what that does is there's a semantic search within the vector database that contains patient EHR data. And after that semantic search, when we get that patient-specific EHR data that is auto-populated, it is converted into tokens and embeddings, and that retrieved patient information is then inputted as additional context into the LLM. And that context, along with the prompt, then gives us a more grounded model and a more accurate response to the prompt. And the thing about specifically retrieval augmented generation and the benefit of this, I think, is aptly put with an example that is used, I'm sure everyone would know, is that ChatGPT was only trained up till 2021 data. So if you want to ask it about any current events, it's either going to hallucinate or just say that it was only trained till 2021. But the way RAG can help this is that what it does is that you can provide current event information as additional context into ChatGPT, and that additional information ChatGPT can then use to provide a response that is accurate. So that is one way we can reduce hallucination, which I'm sure, as we've discussed earlier today, is a huge problem within radiology, specifically radiology reports. And the second sort of use case of RAGs with our patient EHR data that is being input as additional context is this is a perfect way to bypass fine-tuning, because instead of fine-tuning a frontier model from scratch that is going to take a lot of training, you can instead just provide this additional context and kind of bypass that. So the ChatGPT with that additional context is still able to answer the question correctly.
So now we'll go through a little demonstration of how our actual system would be working if we were in the EHR, the electronic healthcare record system, whatever that may be at your institution or clinician's office. So we will prompt in as a little bit of an extra security measure. We would be re-asking for the patient ID and name to be put in. So it will then query to the through FHIR to provide. Sorry, it's been a little faster for me. To then provide a list of ranked based on the impact factor of clinical journals and articles from different and other trusted and credible sources, which we are working to kind of build a database that will utilize the RAG concept to narrow those down to more of a more specific to the disorder based on patient information that is pulled directly from their chart. And so with that, as you can see here, you will then list the symptoms or the known diagnosis. And in this case, they were suspecting it was a GIST tumor. So they inputted GIST. And then after that, it spits out 6 articles. Just in this case, we chose that to then, based on their impact factor, so their how many times they've been cited, and also the relevancy of other articles relating to the topic over the last 2 years, I believe that was, how that number was determined. And then it would also provide a link to the actual source itself. So if they found something interesting on the surface level, they could then go and search that for themselves without having to maybe find the wrong article doing a quick Google search. So that would then be implemented as a plugin or some sort of add-on to the systems like Epic or one of the other big players out there. So yeah, this is a tool to just kind of help the reading of information to make better clinical decisions rather than the tool itself providing a clinical decision.
So one of the main ideas for our entire project is that AI is not supposed to try to solve the problem, but rather be a tool so that the professionals can solve the problem. So we wanted to make sure we focused on that, as we just focused on having the software find journals and different entries so that a professional can actually use it. But for a future implementation of our project, you can even implement a memory sort of system, so that if a patient's data was accessed and like a physician used a different article, then that article can be noted as being useful, and so they can go back and use that same article again when they used a search algorithm again.
And on behalf of my team, we'd like to thank everyone here that supports us and the young SIIM members here as we grow in our profession. You can connect with us and we'll open up for questions.
We've got about another minute of questions for the judges. Any questions? So the question is, could this be a tool for patients?
Yeah, so that was actually we discussed last night, and with the ability to have some sort of memory tracking, obviously with HIPAA and other sorts of industry standards that where we need to keep patient information that is confidential, we need to keep that under lock and key. So right now, as this does utilize an open learning large language model like ChatGPT through the help of MD.ai, as this progresses, we would like to have this kind of be an inside the EHR, so that way no information leaks, things along those lines. And so to go along with your question, that is one feature we would like to add in the going forward, because this was kind of in our, just to generalize for primary care physicians, specialized clinicians. And so with that, yes, on a day-to-day, they are probably presented with a ton of articles. So we thought that with the memory logging that we would like to implement, then if one of their patients did look up an article, it would send an alert to the primary care provider and say, hey, they were looking at this, they found this interesting, or they didn't, and kind of give a summary. So then before the next interaction within the actual office, they would kind of be able to say, okay, I see what you've been reading. I was able to kind of check that up myself. So it would hopefully save a lot of time, money, and maybe some stress overall between the interactions within patients and providers.
Yeah, actually, so the limitation that we have on the number of articles that you mentioned is the limitation of the ChatGPT model. So there's actually a context window. So within each prompt query that you send in, there's going to be a limit. So that was one of the things that we were working on with the memory is that you ask one question about a certain disease, likelihood is you ask 3 questions about a certain disease, it's just going to kind of break because there's a context window limit. So I think the number of articles there, that's going to be that limit. And that's something similar with, again, with the summary is that because we're primarily relying on this LLM to provide the summary, there's a little bit of risk about that hallucination because while it does have that additional context, it still could hallucinate. But again, the summary could definitely be provided. It's just an aspect of there's going to be a context limit.
I think we have a question from Stephanie Ho online. Stephanie?
My question is, when the clinician is benefiting from like the first round of search results, is there a way for them to modify their prompt to the language model so they can like further tailor their search results to a particular question? Like they comes back with GIST, but they're actually not just asking about GIST diagnosis, they're asking about like GIST next treatment options or something like that.
Great question. Just to answer that question, like ChatGPT, it's a user-friendly interface. So if you don't like something, just ask it to change it. It's quite simple. If you, like you said, if this was not a GIST tumor and you decided it was another diagnosis, you simply would just open it. You just open your, continue on your chat box, and then just say, "Hey, I'd like to. Can you provide more resources on X disease?" And then I'll spit back a different set of articles, and then move on from there.
Awesome, thank you.
Mark,
It's super useful.
Mark, do you have a question online as well?
No, I'm good for this one. Thanks.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. All right, thank you very much.
Hi, we're also a group with Marquette University. My name's Dylan. This is Davina. This is Paige. This is Josh, and this is Jorge. And our project is immunotherapy viability test through AI analysis of liquid biopsy. So our goals for the project was pretty much to fully understand what exactly we wanted to do. So our basic idea was that we wanted to use the liquid biopsy to determine immunotherapy viability. And to do that, we had to fully understand the medical context around that. So figuring out which proteins act as biomarkers for immunotherapy viability. And once we further understood that, we were able to develop a proper user story that properly models our immunotherapy decision-making process. And once we had that understood, we were able to make our technological model that utilizes LLMs and FHIR for quick and reliable medical data transfer and interpretation. And once our working model was done, we theoretically would give the oncologists and the patients a peace of mind about a proper treatment plan.
So yeah, as Dylan mentioned, we started with a user story to model our project. So in our story, we follow Jeff, who's a 65-year-old male, and he's been undergoing chemotherapy to help fight his stage 4 lung cancer. And recently, Jeff went in to get a CT scan, and unfortunately, it was revealed that his cancer is actually grown. So his oncologist is looking into different treatment plans, and he wants to get Jeff in to do a biopsy. But Jeff has problems that he lives in the middle of nowhere. So he doesn't want to go in to get a biopsy. He's miles away from miles and hours away from his oncologist. So instead, his oncologist recommends that he gets a liquid biopsy, in which Jeff simply has to go in to get his blood drawn, and then they send in the sample. And then from the sample, they're looking for these genetic markers that Dylan was mentioning. So in order to find out if immunotherapy is viable, you have to check the PD-L1 levels as well as mutations on those 5 genetic codes. And all of that is spit out into a PDF that's pretty extensive. So our product would have the oncologist simply put in the patient name and ID and check for if the immunotherapy is viable. And they would check the FDA label, and they would read through the PDF and find those genetic markers and tell the oncologist if they're there or not and if immunotherapy is viable in Jeff's case.
So we used FHIR to create two different medical records for Jeff. One is more clinical information, such as like his name and age and things of that nature. And the other one was for more genetic information that we pulled using the liquid biopsy. So we were able to insert those two medical records into the FHIR server. And then we had get Python code that we were able to convert using the Postman interface to implement into our interface and send to the LLM.
Which then goes into our LLM itself. The LLM starts with a PDF extractor, which pretty much takes keywords and stores them into the SQL query. And then we then transform that into a pandas data frame that is then able to be read by the model itself. It then takes keyword searches that are relevant, such as the mutations that you guys are looking for, like anything that might be relevant for something that makes patient high risk versus low risk, or if you just need further testing. It then assigns a point value and then puts them into that category that can then alert the oncologist about whether or not you need further testing, whether it's high risk or not. Any keywords that are found on the PDF are also stored in a dictionary within the PDF extractor. So then any previous words that are found are then stored and used and can be used by future model evaluations.
I'll just start. So here's a little demo of our final product working. So the oncologist will put in the name of our patients, in this case, Jeff Doe. And from there, he'll put in the patient's specific ID, then select what test they want to run according to the patient's medical records. So then our software checks through the software, turns green if it finds anything, red if it doesn't find it, and it will suggest if immunotherapy is a viable option or not. Here's a little roadmap of our entire project. So patient receives a liquid biopsy. The information is then stored in a PDF where all the genetic data is stored. That genetic data is then stored in our electronic health records of the patients, which FHIR will then fetch that data and send it to our large language model and identify any key genetic components that the test might want to look at. Then it'll send all of that information to our interface where the oncologist will look at it and make any final decisions and start making treatment plans for our patient. Here are our relevant sources that we use throughout this project. We would like to give a special thanks to Terry, Alex, and Tom for their support throughout this project, and a special thanks to the judges for taking time out of their day to come here and judge us. Thank you.
I got a question for this one. If you guys can hear me.
We can hear you.
Okay, so this is really fantastic. Did you guys think at all about taking those results back to the EHR after you extract the discrete results from the PDF? Because this seems like a really generalizable use case where, you know, you get some external lab and they give you this PDF report that's difficult to consume discretely in your electronic health record.
Yeah, we did think about that. I think one really resourceful thing is that the PDF extractor that we have, it's actually more of like a label encoder kind of function. So with the variation of PDFs that you could get, it makes it a little more broad so that it's looking not just for specific PDF format, but also just keywords in general. And it has the ability to kind of like look at specific regions and then locate all that information and then put it back into the EHR. I definitely think that's definitely an option and feasible, just with more time, probably.
Yeah, thank you so much. Great work.
Thank you very much.
The keyword searches, so how it works is kind of the PDF extractor is kind of like a sub-model in a way. I wouldn't want to call it a full model, but it definitely is in a format where like it's using Microsoft Azure API, where it actually calls like a label extractor API that then is looking for the difference. So any of the sections, so all the columns are like family history, visit summary, and you're then looking for sections within that area, and it looks for like the word no next to whatever mutation you're looking for, and it compares that. Then the model goes and sees and compares, does it have no and the mutation, or does it just have the mutation itself present? And then that then gets factored to point value. I also didn't say the model was tested only with 100 PDF reports. So the accuracy at the moment is 99%. I do think that over time that would probably go down, as most models do, but still reliable as long as you're kind of labeling your regions correctly. But yeah.
I think unfortunately we have to go.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think to help our time here, I think we're going to have to limit our presentations to 5 minutes and one question. So the next one is AI Gateway. So we welcome you up.
Okay. Can everyone hear me? Cool. My name is Nate Richmond. I worked with Stephen, Stefan, and another Nate. Not very confusing, but so this is actually really a Stephen and Stefan show. They are both virtual. Nate and I helped them, and we kind of combined two projects into one here. The goal was basically to make a ML server that can interact with a PAC server. So these were kind of two projects that were using an Orthanc A, which was supposed to be the kind of clinical PAC server, and an Orthanc B, which was supposed to be a research PAC server. And that Orthanc B was talking to an ML server that was spun up. So for the kind of two applications, one is actually for silicosis. So passing kind of an image and some history from the PAC server to Gemini or ChatGPT to kind of determine whether or not a patient has silicosis and potentially even grade it. And the other application is sending CT or some other type of volume to MONAI label or some other MONAI model, segmenting that and then getting it back as a NIFTY and converting it back to DICOM to go back to the clinical PACs. So the first one, you know, I touched on the architecture a little bit. So we have one PACS, which is the kind of clinical one, which has auto routing set up to send, you know, particular scans to a research PACS. That research PACS was an Orthanc server. We implemented a plugin for that Orthanc server, which just sent it to a separate ML server. It was a very quick little fast API server that downloads the models from MONAI or potentially sends it to, you know, some API somewhere else. This is a very quick little output demonstration of what the output looked like. So we get that actually back as a DICOM, and the code is here, and it's just a simple Docker compose two Docker files that spin up the research PACS and the ML server. So the second is we actually had a great presentation earlier on kind of the background of silicosis, but we just wanted to highlight how, you know, it is a problem in the U.S., but it's a problem in a lot of other countries as well, and actually the incidence is a lot higher in some of the other countries. And the other project touched on, you know, how limited the readers are. So having kind of an AI service. So we used Gemini for this, gave kind of a prompt to Gemini as well as the image itself. And what we get out is basically a PDF report that it comes back as just an HTML document from the Gemini. And then we just run a local PDF or a PDF converter to create that as a PDF and send that back to the clinical PACS. And if, I'm not sure if Stephen, you're on here, but if you'd like to do a quick demo, I know we only have a couple of minutes left here.
Yeah, I mean, those images kind of show what it is. I just have that running on my server at home.
Okay.
And I mean, I might kind of explain what I did. I was focusing more on generating a report using Gemini and then also ChatGPT. So I sort of integrated an OpenAI API with an Orthanc using the Python plugin. That's how I generated the reports. So, you know, to integrate it all, I'd probably, you know, I'd have to train a model using MONAI or something. So, you know, that's about it, really.
Cool. That's all we have. Thank you very much. Any questions?
We've got time for just one question. Do the judges have any questions online or in the room here?
Stephen, I'm going to let you answer that one.
I don't know if he can hear that.
Oh, the question was, what was the performance of the Gemini model on classifying the or generating the reports and how accurate it was?
I mean, not very good. I mean, I just use the cloud interface. I mean, what's funny about it, if I use the standard film, and we try to strip out the label, but you know, uploading the standard films, it actually did perfectly fine because it must know what those are, and it generated a report that was quite accurate. So, we didn't really train a model, but the report generation part is pretty easy. And it normally, well, ChatGPT returns Markdown, and then I just convert it to HTML, and then I convert that to PDF, and it's pretty easy to make reports that way, even just with an ORTHEG. So.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Our next team is called Agent 00HL7, so welcome them up.
Can you guys hear us? Okay, yes, okay. So we're Agent 00HL7. You can scan the QR code if you would like to follow along with our presentation. So our mission is to create trustworthy patient-friendly letters via agentic LLM workflows. I'm Alina.
I'm Estella. And I'm Sophie, and we go to Stuyvesant High School in New York City.
Yeah, so as the 21st Century Cares Act was passed and implemented, we have seen an increasing patient accessibility to their electronic health reports. And this legislation, despite allowing the patients to become greater partners of their healthcare, have also caused issues such as the misinterpretation of difficult medical language and unnecessary confusion, which increases patient anxiety. Now, our solution is to create AI-generated patient-friendly letters that simplify difficult terms and medical jargon while preserving medical context and accuracy. So we utilize an agentic workflow or AI agents to ensure accuracy and readability, which we have set to an 8th grade level based off our research. And we can verify these high levels of accuracy by finding the ICD-10 codes in the patient-friendly letter and matching them to the ICD-10 codes of the original report. And then finally, because our workflow is streamlined by AI agents, it reduces the need for proofreading by medical professionals.
Okay, so agentic workflow is an alternative to zero-shot prompting. It utilizes an iterative self-refinement process. And so these AI agents have the ability to reflect on their past outputs and self-correct previous mistakes. And this workflow is really important because it not only enhances the accuracy of the final output, but it also minimizes the need for human input and training. So we're using a framework called Reflexion, and specifically the Reflexion decision-making model. And we'll prompt an LLM to generate a number of patient-friendly letters given a medical report. And then this decision-making model will output the most optimal one, depending on weightings of readability and accuracy. So what makes this workflow really unique is the ability to evaluate the most optimal letter based on 2 things. So number 1 is accuracy. And so the ICD-10 codes generated from the patient-friendly letters will be matched to the ICD-10 codes of the original report. And number 2 is readability, which we've defined as 8th grade, as mentioned earlier, and this could be calculated with our Flesch-Kincaid model. So here's a little simple example. So this patient, Malfi Sim, got a CT abdomen and received a medical report. But the report is really difficult to understand. So on the right is the patient-friendly letter that would be sent to Malfi Sim. So what we did was we asked for the billing codes in this generated letter, and it actually matched perfectly to the original report. So this was done with simple prompting, and we did use a very simple medical report for demonstration purposes, but we do understand that in the real world, reports are much more complicated, and LLMs are also extremely sensitive to input and could possibly hallucinate. So that's why our additions of AI agents and programmatic prompts are intended to handle this complexity as well as minimize errors.
So this is just a little demo for a code. I already started running it, but we are using GPT-4 as our model and at the MD9 interface. And we're integrating SIIM patient data by extracting one of the 5 medical reports that were available from the SIIM FHIR server. And we're also going to be pushing our results to the SIIM server, which is acting as the EHR. So when we extract the original report, we generate the ICD-10 codes, and then we prompt the LLM to generate our 5 patient-friendly reports with the ICD-10 codes at the end. And we use our reflexion model to choose the best letter based on accuracy and readability. So we define a readability metric with the Flesch-Kincaid model, and we set it to a weight of 0.3, and the accuracy as how well the ICD-10 codes match up between the patient-friendly letter and the original report. So we are prioritizing accuracy over readability. And finally, the generated letter is pushed up to the EHR. So through Postman, we can see that it is confirming that the letter exists in the SIIM server. And we can see that the letter, and the ICD codes at the end. And then we can also confirm that the letter is communicated with the patient. So again, we see the patient name and the letter that they will see. And this is just an example of what they would see in their EHR. And you can see the ICD codes at the bottom.
Yeah, so since this is still an early prototype, we have a few ideas for possible improvements. Oh, sorry. And as we look into the future, we envision our model to be more inclusive of a variety of literacy levels, languages, and medical fields. And some other things we plan on including are factoring in compassion and patient history to our weighing system to make it more patient-centric. And when a patient receives a letter, the biggest question is, okay, so what do I do next? And we believe that CDE codes are necessary to deliver these findings to the patient's EHR so that they're able to understand their treatment process, mitigating patient anxiety.
Just wanted to thank the SIIM Hackathon judges, the Hackathon committee, and MDI, and everyone who so kindly gave us the feedback during this hackathon.
And your attention.
Yes.
Right, we have one question we can take from judges if there's anything. Is there anything online, judges, or anyone in the room?
So I think that the diagnosis codes with ICD-10 is really super interesting as a way to validate. Did you think about using any other ontologies like SNOMED CT or anything else that you would think of as a way to validate that output in the patient-friendly letter?
So yeah, we are using ICD-10 codes as a checkpoint for accuracy as for now, but I think there are many different metrics that we could use to verify accuracy, including the CDE codes that we mentioned earlier. So yeah, there are many different things to integrate, but we'll work on that.
Yeah, fantastic work. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next one is data drift.
So, hi everybody. My name is Krish Malik, and I'm a high school student in Parkland High School in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And my topic was identifying data drifts in large language models. So, what is data drifts? So, data drift is the gradual decrease in a model's performance over time because the training data that it was originally trained on is different than the testing data that it's currently being tested on, and that leads to inaccuracies for the model. So my goal for this topic was to identify and see how my model is able to how it faces data drift, which was GPT-2. Another goal was to calculate it and compare it, which I used the perplexity score metric to compare it using with my data. Perplexity score is a metric from low to high, usually from 0 and as high it can go. For me, it was around 1200, and I used that to measure if my model had data drift facing the data that I fed into it. So for my proposed solution flow, I first took the radiology reports as my input into my model tokenizer. The tokenizer essentially divides it up into separate tokens so it can process it. And then as it was converted, it went inside my GPT-2 model, and I got an output, and then it then re-tokenized it so I could the user can understand it. And then I got an output of a summarized radiology report. I then used those outputs and calculated the perplexity score, which was
again, a metric from low to high. And if a perplexity score is lower and closer to 0, it signifies that the model did not drift as much in my case. And if it's higher, it shows that the model did drift. And I had to compare that over time and see if my model did in fact end up drifting. So this is the output. This is the output or the graph I generated within my model. And it shows that my model did not drift over time. You can only see one outlier, which has a perplexity score of 1200, which is nowhere close to 0, showing that the data did drift for that particular input. And you can see that all the other input pieces of input data are all lower compared to that one outlier, showing that for me, in my case, the data did not drift. Now, for anyone else or who wants to use this, it all depends on what the user wants. For example, if you want a more accurate model, you could probably lower the threshold so that so the model does not vary. The model does not drift. So it all depends on who the user is and what they want as their outcome. So quickly transitioning to my demo, you can see that if I scroll down, how I generated my graph at the end of my algorithm, and I can run it real quick in the interest of time. And you can see as I click run and the model is running, I downloaded the various libraries and then my input data as well. I fed it into my model, and it will generate a graph as I wanted a perplexity score. So I first there's actually a formula to calculate it, and then it generated a graph, which takes some time, but right there it is. So that's how it generated the graph. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we're going to move on to the next team. We don't have time for questions, unfortunately, but thank you very much. The next team is Bias Buster.
Hi, everyone. We're representing Team Cleveland Clinic, and we're showcasing today our application called Bias Buster.
I'm Adam Brennan.
Oh, I forgot to introduce us. I'm Kathy Dukowski, and this is
Adam Brennan.
Sorry, I'm nervous. The problem is, with the growing use of production AI models, it's easy to take a model's output for granted, and not without considering the value of the training data. So we are, it's also important that you target the patient or study you want to represent. As mentioned in the ACR Data Science Summit, you don't know what you don't know, and always question assumptions.
So our idea was to create a Streamlit web application that would allow users to evaluate DICOM data sets for bias. And we'll be doing that using open source libraries such as Seaborn and Equatus to give us various figures such as heat maps, missing values, and field distributions. So now I'll go ahead and get into our live demonstration. So hopefully this transition over to the web app goes smoothly. All right, so this is our Streamlit web application. So how an end user would enter this application, the first step would be to select the data set. So for demonstration purposes, we'll be selecting the SIIM Hackathon data set here, which we have pulled down using DICOM web API calls. So we go ahead and select that. We also implemented the option to cache the data set because it's rather large and you don't want to download, or if you don't want to have to download it each time. So we'll go ahead and use the cache here. Now you're able to select your DICOM fields that you'd like to evaluate. So we go ahead and click select all, just for demonstration purposes, and we come down here and click evaluate. Now on the right-hand side here, you'll see that we have selected the SIIM Hackathon data set. And because we've checked this use cache box, it's letting us know that it's checking our local cache and referencing that and evaluating the data set. So this figure here contains the percentage of missing values for each field in the DICOM data set. So why this is relevant is if your goal in using your model has something to do with lossy image compression method here, this probably wouldn't be a very good data set for you, and you'd want to find some other kind of data set to train your model on. Down here, we see the different distributions for each field. So just to give an example, down with the patient sex field here that we went ahead and selected right here over in the left. So this is the distribution for patient sex in all these studies. So as you can see, we have a little over 30 males, about 25 females, and then a little bit under 5 to identify as other. Down here, we have some other visualizations which would be relevant. So here we have a violin plot on patient age and patient sex. So I'll go into this one a little bit more with the summary here. And then we have a heat map as well with photometric interpretation and study description. So you can see here that looks like a lot of these studies are lesion dermoscopies. So if you're doing like some kind of analytics with your model there, that would be a good data set to use.
Here is the Aquatius flow experiment where we trained 20 different models and optimized it for accuracy. The output displays fairness metrics for each of the trained models and recommends the best model based on the samples of hyperparameters. In summary, what Bias Buster can do for you is alert you to underrepresented data points which you are targeting for your research or clinical application. Who are you going to call? Bias Buster.
Yeah.
We have future enhancements too. And here's the list of them. I don't think we have time to go over them.
Just one to note is we'd really like for you to be able to like identify like a subset of your data set and essentially curate that. So say for instance, like in this example where say like you'd want to do some kind of AI work with older patients, you could omit all of the studies for the younger patients and build your data set in the application. And yeah, we just want to thank everyone. We want to thank Mohanad for doing such a great job with the hackathon every year. I think he's really underappreciated, so thank you, Mohanad. We want to thank Dr. Chintan Shah for just going over our presentation with us and helping us prepare. And yeah, thanks everybody.
Thank you. Go team.
Yeah, go team. Yeah, thank you everybody.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Our next presentation is Common Data Elements to Common Ontologies.
Okay, so thank you all. Our project has been about the process of linking common data element definitions, which are starting to play an increasing role in encoding radiology information and associating them with some important common ontologies that we all know about. I'll start by acknowledging the team who's been terrific and thank again the organizers for the opportunity to participate in these terrific events. So the problem statement is that CDE definitions are intended to help identify radiology reports and their attributes, but would like to make sure that as much as possible that they're understandable outside of radiology, and that means in addition making sure that they have other ontologies associated with the definitions. And so that's what we've been working on. And the goal has been to automate what would otherwise be a tedious process by proposing candidate linkages between CDE set element and value definitions and concepts in SNOMED, RADLEX, and the anatomic locations ontologies to enhance the value. So using some semantic search techniques and then with a little interface and all based on a public code repository. So this is basically the summary of it, taking common data elements and linking them to SNOMED, RADLEX, and anatomic locations. So the approach we've taken is summarized here. Basically, we took the contents of the SNOMED, RADLEX, and anatomic locations ontologies, and created JSON documents based on them, loaded them into a MongoDB cloud instance, implemented full text search on that, and then created semantic vectors based on an OpenAI embedding model, and then implemented embedding-based vector search on that. So this is what the documents look like in the Mongo database. So this is a SNOMED document showing, gonal angle for whatever reason, where you see the code, its concept ID, definition, and then you see below that there's that embedding vector, which is the semantic representation of the concept that we're seeing here. So then we developed the code base, which you can see here, which creates an application which is capable of doing searches across all of those ontologies at once using both full text and vector techniques. And so, for example, there's a command line version of a tool to do that, which can pull out relevant results as you're seeing here. And we've also created a web-based version where you're able to go into, look at a web-based tool, choose, enter the search term, choose which ontologies you want to search, how many results you want from each, and perform the search and get a list of search results back. So what are we going to do with this? Obviously, the next step is to try and bring it, first of all, is to do some increased filtering and re-ranking using LLM-based approaches. We're going to create an API backend for this. We're going to do more direct work with the CDE set definitions, so being able to use other parts of our code base to load CDE set definitions, and then have an agent-based approach to breaking that into terms, doing the searches and pulling them in. And then incorporating them into the authoring process that we have, where there's a VS Code extension that we've already created that's capable of doing this. This is now going to be augmented with Radlex and SNOMED and be more tightly filtered for the different parts of a CDE set definition. So again, I want to acknowledge the team and say how excited I am that we've gotten so far with this project so quickly. So thank you.
All right, thanks everyone for joining again today. Great job by all the teams. I'm really excited to see who is announced in our session at the end of the day here. I just wanted to repeat the team names for you. We will have in the Slack channel and online in the chat, you will see link for the Audience Choice Award. So please do, we might have it, the QR code coming up in a minute here too, so you could vote for your favorite project. Please do that. I think that's a great award. So I do want to repeat the team names and numbers so that you know who to vote for. Number 1 was integrated reporting and conferencing with FHIRCast. Number 2 was automated quantification of occupational lung disease. 3 was Team Scan and Tell. 4 was accessing clinical information from the EMR. 5 was Rad Tracker. 6 was QuickMed. 7, Marquette Immunotherapy. 8, AI Gateway. 9, Agent 00 HL7. 10, Data Drift. 11, Bias Buster. 12, Common Data Elements to Common Ontologies. I would like to thank everyone again for attending. Remember to vote in those Audience Choice Awards. Thanks to all the participants today. Okay, we don't have the QR code to put up on the screen there for the Audience Choice Awards. So Mohanad's putting up his laptop, so anybody can come here and scan that code and vote that way. Thank you to the Hackathon Committee. Just so you all know, the Hackathon Committee works all year long to produce this meeting that we have here. So thank you for them. Thanks to all our mentors, code heroes, and domain experts. Thank you very much to the SIIM staff for putting this on for us. As you saw, we had a couple technical difficulties and they were running around behind the scenes and taking care of that for us right away. So thanks to them. Thanks to the SIIM community for supporting this. And a recording of this webinar will be posted to the SIIM's YouTube channel. And reminder that the results of this will be announced today at 3:15 at the general closing sessions. I do want to say one more thing. I know we're short on time. Thank you all much for staying for a few extra minutes, but I just want to point out Mohamed is the face of our hackathon. He is a face of even SIIM, and he was running around, I don't know if you all noticed, the entire time and making sure that all of this ran as smoothly as possible. So huge shout out to Mohamed. You are one in a million, and we love having you work with us. Thank you so much, Mohamed. Thank you everyone for attending. Don't forget to pop and vote. Thank you very much.